Okay, so let's do this over here. So we're going to look at a couple of new commands that we might have, I asked you to look at yesterday. The first one being copy. So I already showed you copy. Okay. What does, so I won't go into it again. Any questions on copy? CP. Pretty straightforward. Okay. Ping. Who can tell me what ping does?
I use that to test my internet connection before.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't know what could I do with it.
Well, ask a response for an host.
Yeah, to test reachability of a host. Test reachability of a host. So you can ping anyone and it tests the reachability. It comes back with something, right? And it tells you the IP of who you connected to. So this is google.com's IP. And it tells you, whoa, whether or not, I did a little paste there, that was interesting. And I did a little, and it tells you whether or not, and it also can tell you whether or not they exist. Okay. So sometimes when a website's down, I'll ping it to see if it's like, is it really down? Or is it my web browser? Or like, what's going on? So oftentimes I'll just ping it. Or if I want to find out the IP of a website, I'll just ping it. And it comes back with the IP. So it tells me the IP of it too. Because sometimes you want to know the IP of a website for whatever reason. Oh, I hit the paste again. So, and to stop, how do you think you stop ping?
Another Control C.
Q. Yeah, Control C. Q, no, Q doesn't work. Control C. Control C kills it. Yeah. And then it gives you a little piece of stats. Here's how many times we sent. So we pinged it 6 times. We got 6 responses back. Took this long. Average, you don't really need to know that stuff. It's just about having an extra command in your back pocket. Find. What does find do?
Finds file.
Yeah, finds a file. So you can find a file. And you can tell it, you can give it a pattern. You can give it, so it can find a file anywhere in your computer. So you can give it a pattern. You can give it commands to follow, like only look in this directory, look in this directory and everything else. Look in files as well, okay? So let's see. This is not very much help. I'm gonna say man find. Search for files and directory. So if you're on Mac or you're on Linux, you have these things called manuals, man pages, they're called manuals. You just type in man space and then the command, and it brings up a description of the command as well as everything that does. So this one is find, search for files in a directory, okay? And it usually gives little examples down at the bottom. They can get pretty long, as you can tell. It's a whole manual, right? So let's see. There's a sample here. Huh. Wow, these are long. That's crazy. So they have like little examples in here as well on how you can do stuff. But like, as you can tell, these commands can be very, very in-depth, okay? What else we got? DU. What does DU do?
Estimated data usage.
Yeah, so DU, actually, so DU, DU is data usage. Disk usage stands for disk usage. So if you man DU, the first thing it'll tell you, estimate file space usage. So if you say du, it will actually go through every file in the folder that you're in. There's a way du-help just to give you the summarize, display only the total -s, so du-s. So now we'll go through and it'll just give me the total, okay? But this is not very helpful, right? What is this? Does anyone know what that is? Bytes. Bytes, yeah. So if we want, usually if we want it to be human readable, that's -h, I know recalculate. And dot is, remember, dot is this directory, the directory that I'm in. So it's 300, the directory that I'm in has 360 megs in it. And most of that comes from these hidden folders, believe it or not. Okay, but that's how you can find out how big a directory is. And it's recursive automatically. Like it automatically goes into the subdirectories and everything too. You can tell it not to if you want, but so this is a really helpful command if you want to figure out how big a directory is. du-s, otherwise if you don't do -s, it does this, right? And it's, let me pause it for a second. It's literally going through every directory and subdirectory and responding with, oh, this directory, this is 28 bytes. This is 4 bytes. This is 4 bytes. This is 4 bytes. This is 28 bytes. This is 32 bytes. So it's literally printing out everything. So if you just want the summary and you want to be human readable, you just do that. And it takes a little bit of time, whatever, you know, things take time. Alias we looked at yesterday. Okay, we can create an alias for a command. Did I end up making an alias for my ll command? I don't think so. I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to make an alias. Actually, I'll do that later when we do that part. Okay, so you can alias any command. So I like to have ll alias to ls-la. Okay, so I say alias space my new command that I want and what the actual command is going to execute. So this could be anything. Okay, and hit enter. And now when I hit ll, it will show me all the hidden files. It wasn't doing that before. Then we have tail. What does tail do?
The last of the file.
Yeah, it shows the end of the file. So you can actually look at the beginning with head. You can look at the end with tail, or you can print out the whole thing with cat. Okay, and that's how I like to think. I like to think of this as a cat. So a cat tail or a cat head or a cat, the whole cat. Okay, so we're looking at the tail, just the end. And you can control how many lines you want to look at. So here, I'm just going to cat this file, Z shell history. Okay, and so I have history, all the commands that were ever written. Okay, so it's this big, long file. I only want to look at the end of the file. Let's say the last 10 lines. So I'm going to say, instead of cat, let's say tail-n, 10. And see, it just gave me the last 10 lines of that file. So I could just look at the end of it. This is really helpful if you want to, sometimes we watch logs, log files. And so like we might want to see the log, just the end of the log, the most recent things that occurred, not the whole thing. Log files can get really big. So that's tail.
Okay. I have a question. Yesterday I typed in head space desktop and it changed my user to desktop, like my username.
Like that?
I don't remember. Or it was desktop head. It was one of them.
If you don't remember, it's really hard for me to help you. Like these things are very specific. It's hard to change your user, your actual user, like your actual username unless you did something very specific. But and again, if you don't show me or know the exact command you ran, it's really hard for me to know exactly what happened. But head should only print out the first part of files. So this is the end of that file. This is the beginning of that file. You would never do that with a directory. So like here, if I was in my Windows thing, users, let's see, this is my Windows directory, right? So I have my desktop directory here, desktop. So if I went head desktop, it won't do anything. It's a directory. You can't head or tail a directory. You can head or tail a file with contents inside. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions about tail? Okay, and then we have history. And history, again, is just a listing of all the commands that you ran. Bash is really interesting, okay? It doesn't track all the commands in one history file. Every time you open up a new terminal or you close it, it creates what's called these things that are called sessions. And you might be, and I don't know exactly how many it can create over time, but you might end up connecting to the same one that you were using last time, and each session has its own history. The thing I like about Zed Shell is that it only has one history file, so no matter how many new tabs I opened of the same shell, like this is the same shell, the history is still the same. The history is still the same. So if I do something in this one, like head Zed Shell history, type in history, right? And then I come over here, and then it says the last command was LL. If I type in history, it'll show me actually the last command was history. Or head, right? Because that was the last one that I did right here. Okay, so they're tied together. Yours, Bash, may not be like that. So sometimes you'll be like, oh, I'm sure I typed in this command and it doesn't show up. It's because sometimes the tabs can keep separate histories and they may not join each other. Okay, Zed Shell, it's all just one history. It doesn't matter how many tabs you have open, it's just shared history. So that's something to note about the differences between Bash and Zed Shell. Okay, I only bring up Zed Shell because sorry I mentioned it's the default for the new Mac OS. So it's a reality now. Okay, customize your prompt. Be sure to include the following: the current user and the current directory. Also add at least 2 different colors. So how do you do that? Well, I gave you a link to how to customize your prompt. Right, it's actually in the video. In the video, there's a link to customizing your prompt. Okay, so if you watch this, more Bash, watch. Oh, jeez. Okay, there's actually a link on customizing your prompt. What's going on? Okay, controlling the shell prompt. So you can actually just go and generate a shell prompt. Where do your shell prompts go? Who can tell me where your shell prompts go? Don't look. The answer's not here. What's that?
Your home directory.
Okay, where in your home directory?
The dot bash slash profile.
Yeah. So if you're using bash, it goes in bash profile, or depending on your version, right? It's either going to go in, your prompt is either going to go in, where am I here? It's either going to go in dot profile. It's either going to go in dot bash profile, dot bash RC. If you have bash RC and you put it in there, it'll for sure work. Okay. You don't have to put it in either of these. Put it in there for sure. Or Z shell RC. ZSHRC in your home directory. So you got to be in your home directory because that's where that lives. Super zoomed in here. Okay, so that's where that lives. Right in this file right here. Or BSHRC. BSHRC, not BASHRC. Okay. Okay. And with your ability to configure your shell prompt, you can put in anything. You can put in the date. You can put in the location. You can put in the username. There are different creating a repo. There are different customize bash prompt. How to customize in color. Easy prompt generator. This is a really good one. You can just say, what do you want? I want my username and I want my path to the current directory. And then you can put in, and then you can just copy this. And it even says copy and paste the code into your bash RC. You just copy and paste that into your bash RC and you're off to the races. So I'm going to take that. You can also change the colors too if you have coloring. You can put in a $. Right. So I like to say user at. I can't modify this. Okay. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to bring up git bash. And I'm going to do code.bash RC. Bring up my bash RC in code. And I'm going to paste that. Did I not copy it? Copy. Paste. An at symbol, save. Cool. Now I'm going to close this. And I'm going to reopen it. Git bash. And it didn't like it. Is it even there? Oh, because I called it bash RC. No, that should be correct. Let's try putting it in bash profile. This is always a little bit of a trick. Bash profile. Alias work there. Try doing that. Let's save that. And you actually don't need to close it. You can do something called source. And there we go. There's my new prompt. Super ugly. Okay. So now if I close this and I go back into git bash, there's my new prompt. Okay. Just like that. PS1. Export PS1. PS1 equals is your prompt. Questions on that? Let's add an alias. So you already saw me, I added an alias. I'm going to add an alias to my Z shell one because I don't have that alias over there. So I'm going to code my ZSHRC and put it in there. I want LL in there because I like to have it all the time. So I just like to put it closer to the bottom. Doesn't really matter. Usually put all my aliases together, and I don't have any yet. So prompt ll equals ls dash la. Save that, and we can source that. Source hrc, and it reloads it. Great. Yeah. Or you can close your terminal and reopen it. Okay, and now I have LL, and it shows me all my hidden files. Did anyone else add an interesting alias? Oh, I told you which ones. Clear. CD ... So if you wanted to add this as an alias, it would look like this. Let's open this first. Alias. Here's the command we want to alias. I would put that in quotes. I don't know how it likes spaces. Put that in quotes. And that is equal to, let's just call it CD3. So the command that I will run is CD3, and it equals this command. Okay, that's what it does. Goes up 3 directories. I'm making up a name here. So we leave, then we come over here, we source that, or we close it and reopen it. And we go CD3, and boom, it went up 3 directories. I'm no longer at home, I am now at root, okay? So if we look to where I am now, I'm at root. I'm not home anymore. So user Jade, just home, Jane Isel. It's my home. Okay. Questions on that? I'm getting this sense that how many of you are practicing? I'm getting a sense that maybe a lot of you aren't practicing.
Practicing terminal use, or
Yeah.
are you asking if we did the exercise?
Both.
Okay. Exercise I did most except one, the ping thing. I didn't really want to mess it up, didn't really understand, so that one I waited. Terminal use, I tried erasing most of the hidden files. And I did something wrong about application support. I erased something probably critical, so so one of my messaging app didn't work properly, so I had to re-download everything.
Yeah. Don't just go deleting files, right? Like, unless you created the file and you know what the file's there for, or you actually know what the file's there for, don't just go around your computer deleting files.
Yeah, like, I learned that now, so I'm not erasing anything. But is there any other way isn't there any other way I can clear history of the terminal when I search for history? So the number bothers me, like 500 something, that number that appears at the left side of what you have written. It bothers you? Yeah, I want it to be gone. I'm very anal about those things. History is actually just a file. So actually, right, like, see this file here, Z-shell history? Yeah. If I echo empty into Z-shell history, right, and then I type in history, I was not expecting that. I was expecting it to empty it out. There should be another way. There's no way, okay. No, there totally is a way. Totally, absolutely. There is a way, I just don't know off the top of my head. I would have expected that to work. Now I'm kind of worried about what I did in here, but not that worried. There is a file somewhere located on your computer that contains all the history. So all you have to do is clear that out.
usually I ask the internet the question, like how to clear Z shell history. And it's usually pretty good. Delete a command from your history. Can I just delete it? To remove the command, open that file, remove the entry from the list. I thought I echoed empty string into it.
Yeah, I tried on Bash too, and it didn't do anything.
Yeah, so it depends on the versions. For sure, 100% there is a way. The question is just how. Just to clarify, I'm looking for a way that delete the contents of hist file. Erase history size.
John.
You can actually set your history size to 0, and then it won't track anything. Yeah.
And sorry, on Git Bash, history is just the C tag will clear the history.
History-C?
Yeah, and I just found that by history-help because.
Oh, history file deleted. Reload to see its effects. There you go. That would have been a good way. History-help.
Yeah, and then if you try, it'll have reset, so it works.
There you go. So yeah, I'm just, now I don't know. I just, from the crickets in here when I ask questions, it's really, really quiet, so I'm a little bit concerned. I'm not necessarily looking for like, yes, no, John. What I'm looking for is like, if you're not doing it, it's going to cause problems for you. Okay. And that's all I can say. It's going to cause problems for you. You really, really have to throw yourself into this. Like, again, day 4, I'll repeat the same thing I said on day 1. You really have to throw yourself into this. You really have to work on this. You really have to practice. You have to live in the terminal. Okay. All right. So I think that's it. And then we talked about doc files yesterday. So that is it for this stuff. Practice navigating around your file system. Again, just practice. Okay. The exercises are not enough. You need to do more. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Bash. We're done Bash. I'm not talking about Bash anymore. Okay, so that was your crash course, 3-day crash course in Bash. We're going to keep using it though, but I'm not going to be teaching you more specifically about Bash, but we're going to start using it on a daily basis. Okay, because we're going to learn Git. So at the top of your course outline here, I have a link to a free Udacity course, version control with Git. Okay, so we're going to use this one as some documentation. It's pretty helpful. So you can click here, start your free course, just make sure you're logged in. Okay, I'm going to post along with the readings, the lessons that I want you to watch. Okay, and the stuff that I cover is going to be directly tied to the lessons. Okay, so here I have watch creating a repo. So you'll watch that and watch what is version control. You should probably watch that one first. What is version control and creating a repo? I have a little bit of documentation for you because like these things are not documentation. If you wanted documentation, which is the real deal, going to be way more complicated, but it contains all the information that you need, right? I also link to the documentation, okay? And then we have exercise 4, creating a repo. Okay, so I've tested all that stuff out. So this is where things get a little bit tricky because my exercises, while I do test them out, in this case, if I miss one character, things just don't work. And so it's very like, I apologize in advance if things seem like they're not working. Maybe just post the question in Discord to your class. Maybe poke me and ask me like what's going on. Okay. Sometimes the exercises I might have left out a period or a character or something like that, and everything just doesn't work because of that. Like I said, I have tested it, but sometimes I miss things. Word of warning. Okay. So what is version control? The best way I can define version control is what we're going to be doing right now. We're going to be adding something to our code So it kind of acts like Google Drive. Now, if anyone uses Google Drive, let me bring up that right here. Okay, so, oops, this is good. So I keep everything in Google Drive, okay? And what Google Drive does is it allows me to access from any computer. Version control does that, okay? The other thing, but the more powerful thing that version control does is it kind of gives me this history, okay, about all the changes that have ever happened in this document, okay? So I can click on the changes and I can see history ordered by date of all the changes I've ever made to this document. Okay, so I can go back and I can look at what did I do April 23rd, 11/13? What did I do April 21st? And see, it even shows me the changes that I made. For those of you who didn't know that you could do this with documents, I hope you're learning something, okay? So you could do this with documents if you keep them on Google Docs. I don't know if it's supported in whatever Hotmail, Microsoft stuff, but I do know it's supported in Google Docs. So we're going to be kind of doing the same thing with our code. So that way, as you know, we write our code, we so far have been writing our code over days, right? We'll work multiple days on code, and we're generally working as individuals. But in bigger projects, especially in projects that you're going to be working on when you get a job, we're going to be working on these things as a group, on a team, and they're not going to be day-long or multi-day. They're going to be multi-week, multi-month, multi-year projects. And over the course of that time, we want to be able to track all the changes that we make to the code in case something goes wrong somewhere and we need to take a couple steps back. I would be lying to you if I told you that I never had to go back and be like, oh shit, I deleted something over here and I really needed it. It took me a long time to write and I don't remember what it was. Click, I get to go back and see what did it look like at that time. Oh, okay. And it even asks me at the top, do I want to restore this version? Okay, so this is an awesome graphical user interface representation of what version control is. Or so oftentimes we're going to refer to this as, let me find something here and try to get, we're going to often refer to this as either version control, okay, or source control. Okay, version control because we're controlling our version, or source control because we're controlling our source code, right? Because that's what it is. We write source code. So you might see this being referred to as a version control system. VCS, okay, is the acronym, VCS, or source control management system, or source control management, SCM, SCMS. Okay, so if you ever see those acronyms, we're just talking about something that tracks changes over time in our code. That's what we're talking about. Okay, and there is a couple of big players in this field. There is really one big one, okay? And that's the one we're going to be learning. I'll talk about the smaller ones first. The smaller ones are SVN, okay, and Mercurial, or HG, okay? Those are some smaller players, okay? Some people like those, some people use those. But the big one we're going to be using is Git. Git was written by a fellow named Linus Torvalds. Are any of you familiar with Linus Torvalds?
Yeah.
Is that Linus Tech Tips?
Linus Tech Tips? No, that's Linus Sebastian.
Linus, the cord.
So Linus Torvalds is like genius programmer. He wrote Linux. Okay, he's still alive. He's still programs. He still does interviews. Super brilliant guy, and he wrote Linux. Okay, so I'm sure you've heard of Linux. He also wrote Git. He wrote these tools because he needed them. Crazy, right? So Git is an open source control management system. Okay, and the one we're really going to misspelled it. Okay. The one we're really going to be focusing on is Git, and its biggest, I guess, one of the biggest companies that supports Git is a company called, or like that, whose main content is around this, our source control management system, is GitHub. Okay, so GitHub did not create Git. GitHub does not own Git. Okay, GitHub is a place just like that we can store things with Git. It's a place. There are many places. That we can store things with Git. Okay, so it's a central repository. It's a centralized place. All right. So what is Git and why Git? So Git is a decentralized version control system. Okay, but John, you just said we're doing stuff at GitHub, and you said GitHub's like this central place to store that can store things. What decentralized means within this context is if three of us are working on a project together and we're all tracking changes with Git, and my computer breaks and someone else's computer breaks, as long as one of us has a working copy, we can rebuild the whole thing. Each working copy contains 100% of all the information, including all the history, all the changes, everything that was made all the time. So it's not centralized, it's decentralized in the sense that there's not one central place that contains all the history, and what we have are just the current copies, right? Each person, what we call repositories, contains all the information, every single change that ever occurred. So if I have a repository and you have a repository and you have a repository and you have a repository, okay, we all have exactly the same data, okay, about the same project, assuming there's the same repository. Okay, so there's no central or master server. Any up-to-date copy would contain all the information we need to rebuild this thing from scratch, including all the changes. Okay, it's kind of like Google Docs, but it's actually way better. This is way less powerful. Oh, where was it? This is actually way less powerful than Git and version control. So we're going to quickly look at a little bit of vocabulary. Okay. What we do today, what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to initialize, and we're going to learn how to, what are we going to learn? It's a good question. I have it all in here. Configure, initialize, and clone, and do git status. Pretty simple stuff. So we're not going to copy any changes yet, but we are going to look at some vocabulary anyways. So in version control, in Git, we have things called commits. A commit is essentially like a snapshot in time of what things look like, or what things look like at that time. So if we were to go and compare that to this revision history, okay, each of these things would be what we call a commit. Okay, a snapshot in time of what the document looked like April 23rd, 2019 at 2:19 p.m. Okay, so this is the snapshot that was taken. in Git language, this is not version control in the same sense, but in Git language, these things, they're going to be called snapshots, or sorry, commits. But you could think of them as snapshots, a moment in time that we decided was a good idea to say, hey, we should take a picture. We should take a picture of this. Okay, we should take a snapshot of this. We should commit this. That way we have a snapshot of it in case if anything goes wrong. Okay, so that's commit. Then we have repo or repository. Okay, a repository is generally the directory that contains all the work that we want to be tracking. Okay, it's a directory on our computer that contains all the stuff that we want to be tracking. Oftentimes, it's a specific project directory. So if you're building project 3, you would want to make that a repository or a repo. Okay. And then we have another thing, the working directory. And that is the top level directory of that repo. So you know in your project, you might have subdirectories, CSS, JavaScript, images. You might have all those other ones. The top level directory is usually your working directory. We'll see all of that, okay? So one of the first things we need to do is make sure we have Git installed, okay? If you use Git Bash, you're good. Git's already installed. If you're using Mac, this is what you do to check if you have Git installed. Oh, wait. Git -- version. All of you, type in Git -- version. You're using Git Bash. Right. 226. I got 225 over here. Saria, what do you got?
215.
215. Yushin, what do you have?
Yeah, same 215.
215. Kevin?
I actually have 2.26.
That's what I have too. Yeah, well, I've got 2.26 over here. And so like, we're all going to be running some different 2.26. We're all going to be running some different versions, but I think as long as we're in version 2, things are going to be fine. It's all going to be like, there's not major changes from one version to the other. And if there is, I'd be really surprised. Okay. So if you did this and you got nothing back or you got an error, that means you don't have Git installed. That means you need to go and download and install Git as we mentioned in the first class. Okay. So I have links in class 1 on the website directly to things that will go and allow you to download Git. I'm not going to go over it again. Go watch the video. Okay. Now, with Git, there are certain things that you're going to want to do once you have it installed. We are going to want to configure it. Okay. And we're going to want to do this from the command line. Everything is from the command line. Okay, so these commands are actually available in the videos too. Okay, so if you go to the video, so I'll show you where they are. We'll go through them together. We'll actually do them together. But if you need to reference these commands again, they are in the videos. So we are in number 4, and it is what is version control. Okay, under the what is version control video, you'll be looking at the Mac or the Linux setup. Okay, it doesn't matter, but it really comes down to this stuff right here. Okay, and these are configuration options. And we're gonna have to, everyone's gonna have to do this. So you should all do this now. Do it along with me, okay? So the first thing we're gonna wanna do is we're going to wanna set our username, our name. And what this is going to do is when we timestamp, when we decide to take a snapshot of something, right? You see how it has a name here? Okay, again, I know this is not Git, but this is a perfect example. You see how it has a name here? Well, it will, if we don't set our name, it will say unknown. And we don't want that. We want our names to be attached to these snapshots. Okay, so we do that like this. We run this command. Git, so I'll copy and paste, okay, and you could write it. Git dot space config space dash dash global space user dot name space your username. Don't put in Jonathan Neisel. Put in your name. You can put in anything. Angry squirrel, whatever you want. Okay. We set our username. In addition to that, we're probably going to want to do that with our email address. Same thing. Git config global user email space. Okay, MITT. My email address. Don't put in my email address. Okay, Git can be configured to send out emails, helpful emails, if you want it to be. The next command is just to make the UI colorful. So again, all these commands are starting with git config dash dash global. Color.ui, auto. Enter. Okay. This next one I'm going to post in Slack, Discord, because it's long. You can just copy and paste that. Okay. This is going to tell Git how to manage merge conflicts, which we'll talk about later. You can just copy and paste that. And now we can, once you've done that, you can look at the configuration that you've set. Username, user email, color UI, merge conflict style, this. There. So this is what we set in our doing our configuration. And just hit Q to get out of there, or Control C. No, not Control C, Q. Control C doesn't work apparently. No. Okay. Everyone good? Again, if you screw it up or you're not sure, all these commands are in the videos in there. Okay, so just follow along. I'll walk you through it. Last but not least, we need to tell Git our default editor. Okay. So we're going to want to use VS Code as our default editor. So we're going to want to do this. And I'll paste this one in Discord as well. Okay, what this is doing is telling Git, because Git doesn't know what to use as occasionally it will need to pop open an editor. It doesn't know if it should pop open Notepad, or if it should pop open TextPad, or it should pop open VS Code, or like, so we have to tell it. And that's what we're telling it. We're telling it, use the editor code standing for VS Code. Right? That's how we access code. All right? So we're giving it the command. And then we're saying dash dash wait. Okay? Don't worry about that. You'll see what happens. Okay? So if we look again at our config list, now we see our editor in there as well. Okay. We are now ready to start Gitting. So let's get around. So the first command I want to show you is to turn a project directory into a repository. So we're going to say, hey, Git, start tracking changes in this directory. Okay. So we're essentially turning a directory into a repository. And it looks like something like this. And you could do this. We can just do a sample. Okay. So let's do a make dir git test. So I'm going to make a new directory called git test. And I'm going to switch into that directory. In this directory, let's pretend we've got a project. So I've got index.html, I've got app.js, and I've got styles, CSS. Okay, so I've got 3 files here. And I want to start tracking this because this is going to be a big project. And I want to take lots of snapshots of this project. Okay. Here is how you do it. And be careful. A lot of students run this command on the wrong directory and their computers crawl to a halt. Do not run this command on your home directory. Please do not run this command on your home directory. You will think for the rest of your life that your computer is slow, but it's not. It is just because you ran this command on your home directory. So make sure you're in the directory that you want to track, that you want to create a repo for. I'll show you how to undo this too. Okay, so you can always at least come back to this video and be like, John told me not to do it and I did it. How do I fix it? Come back to this video and I'll show you. Okay. Git test. We are going to initialize this as a Git repository. All we do is we type in this command. All Git commands start with the word Git. And we want to initialize. And I usually like to add dot. Dot being this directory that I'm in right now. But I don't think you need to. I think you can just run it like that. And what does it say? Initialized empty Git repository in home jnisel git test. My terminal came up with this awesome thing over here indicating that I am now in a Git repository. Yours doesn't do that. Okay. Because I have this set up in a way that I like. The videos can walk you through this, okay? The videos can walk you through how to do that. Okay, so let's look at what happened here. What happened if I do a listing is actually something that really, really simple. All it did was it added this .git folder. This is a folder, a hidden folder. It added a .git folder to this Git test directory, to my project directory. I can go into that folder and I can look around and I see a whole bunch of other folders and files. Okay, so this one folder is actually everything about starting now, all these snapshots, all these changes, all this information is all being tracked inside this one folder. So if you ever wanted to have this no longer be tracked and no longer be a Git repository, this folder, all you need to do is remove this .git folder. rm dash, you're going to need this one, r.git. And I have a feeling I'm going to need an F on here, but we'll try. Nope, that's it. So now you'll see this magical stuff that's on prompt is gone. It is no longer a repository. That is how you undo your Git init. Just remove the .git folder. Okay, come back to the video if ever that you break something. Questions?
Sir, I tried the same path as you, but for me it's that rm cannot remove .git because no such file in directory.
Did you create it? Are you in the right place?
Oh wait, I add something else on there. I'll try it later.
Okay, so double check, make sure you're in the right place, make sure that directory is there, right? You'll notice I use LL a lot, or ls-la or ls, because I'm constantly looking at what files are there. I make assumptions, but I'm doing a lot of listing. So you can run this in any directory that you want. It will track, well, it doesn't track, it sets it up to start tracking changes, which is why it can slow down your computer tremendously if you run it in the wrong directory. Okay, so having said that, you only need to run it in the top level directory. So like if there were subdirectories in here, I do not need to run it in each of those directories as well. This will track all changes inside git tests. Okay. Now it does require a little bit of work, additional work from us. It doesn't just track the changes and everything's working and we're done. No. This is a very big multi-step process, okay, and an investment of time and effort. So it's ready to start tracking changes in this directory. Anything that happens, any updates, let me just mute that. Any updates that occur in this directory are available, including new files, new directories that get added, changes to existing ones. It can all be tracked. Okay, so as we start developing our application, our project, we can start tracking this stuff. Okay, so git init. That is how we initialize. And again, everything's in this one folder, really. So if we delete this, it's no longer a repository. Our repository is just like a name. It's still just a directory on our computer. We refer to it as a repository because it has this folder in it, this extra folder. And so it's recognized by Git. Any questions there?
So the size of that folder will continue to grow, right?
Yeah. So the size of the folder will continue to grow because we're constantly taking snapshots. And so like, even though, let's say we didn't add any more files here, but let's just say we're constantly updating and changing and updating and changing and updating and changing, then all the snapshots continue to take up space. They continue to grow because we're keeping history of everything. Git typically doesn't take full history. All it does is take partial changes. So only the changes that occurred, not a total snapshot of the file. So its belief is that if I start with the full file, all I need to do from then on is track the changes that occur. And then based on that full file and all those little changes, I can reassemble everything. So it's not like taking a full snapshot of the full document every single time. It's only tracking, starts with the full document and then just tracks changes over time. So it's actually, the folder doesn't get that big.
That's good. Yeah, it sounds like the plus equals.
Yeah, it's a very classic backup technique for like, that's how Time Machine works. If you back up your computer with Time Machine, it just takes what we call diffs, just diffs. One of the other things too is this really only works for text files. Okay, this doesn't work for binary files. So text files meaning changes to something that we can read, right? Remember when I printed out that image to the screen the other day? It looked like the Matrix, right? It was all crazy. Images are binary files. If I open an image in like VS Code, it doesn't show me the image. It shows me the binary representation of that image, zeros and ones or hexadecimal or something, right? Which makes no sense to me. A regular person can't read that. People can't read that. And so, but we can read code. We can use JavaScript, HTML, CSS, text files, right? So those are considered plain text files. It doesn't mean it has to end in .txt. It just means that the content of the file is human readable. It only tracks files that are human readable, which is actually most files. So you won't track changes to a JPEG that you're working on. Like, oh, you added a mustache to the guy today, and tomorrow you're going to add eyebrows, right? It's not going to track changes like that. It only tracks changes to code, really. Not code, but text, plain text files. Okay. Or text. Yeah.
So if you had a file that was encrypted, then what would happen in that case?
Yeah, it wouldn't track that.
Okay.
Like you can take a snapshot, but it doesn't track diffs to files like that. So when I was talking, when Yushin asked me about like how is it going to grow over time, and I'm saying no, it only tracks like changes. Those bigger binary files or encrypted files or anything like that, those would get like, okay, you totally replaced this entire file with this entire new file. That's what it sees. It doesn't see them as small changes within that file, even though you did maybe just draw a mustache on a character in your JPEG. It would, or you change one letter in your encrypted file, it would consider them two totally separate files and say, you replace this file with this file on that day. You replace this file with that file on that day. So it still tracks them, but not individual changes. It tracks them as you replaced a file. Yeah.
And if I have folders, let's say this case in the Git test, so it will also track all the files within that folder. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. If you have folders in here and files in those folders, it will also track all of those. Because so what we typically would want to do is we want to run git init on the top level directory. This is, by the way, this is my working directory. We want to run this on our top level directory of our project. And then it tracks all the directories below it, all the child directories and all the child files. Okay. So now, okay, so great. We started our own, but that is not all we can do. We're almost done, okay? But that's not all we can do. We can also copy someone else's stuff from other places, right? If someone else has a full working copy, we can copy it and also be part of the action and work on it together as part of the team, right? So we can do what's called clone. So I'm going to just step back here into my home directory, and we're going to go and we're going to pull some open source stuff. So we're going to clone normalize.css. So I'm going to post this in Discord. This is the repository for normalize. Okay, and you've all, oh, that's cute. And you've all seen normalize before, right? So this is the GitHub repository for normalize. Remember, we use normalize.css. Now, this is more than just the CSS file. This is a bunch of other stuff that they use to build that CSS file. So this is the programming behind it. Sounds weird, I know, but it's a thing. Okay, trust me. So let's say we don't just want to use normalize in a project. Let's say we want to be part of the normalize team and contribute to the programming of this normalized CSS file. Okay, so we want to pull down all these files and all this code and all the changes that were made over time. See, remember like what I said, commits? There's 360 snapshots that were taken. Okay, and you can click on any snapshot and you can see the changes that were made to the file. Green pluses mean additions, okay? It's okay, don't worry about that. Okay, I just want to jump into that quickly. So commit snapshots. So we're going to copy this down, okay? And with Git, there's a really easy way to do that. You can go to the URL and you can copy it, okay? Or you can come over here to this big green button that says clone or download. We don't want to download, we want to clone. And it says clone with HTTPS. Use Git or checkout with SVN using the web URL. So we're essentially just going to click this thing and it'll copy it to the clipboard for us, it's just this, that's all it is. It's just the URL, okay? So you can copy that URL or copy the URL from up here, doesn't matter where you get it. come back to your terminal. Okay, and we're going to run a new command. So our first command, git init. Take an existing directory on our computer and make a repository out of it. Now, instead of taking an existing directory, we're going to copy a repository from somewhere else. So the command is git clone. You can run this anywhere. It will create a new directory in your current directory. So I'm okay with a new directory being created in my home directory. Okay, I'm fine with that. So, but it's not just going to dump the files. It's going to create a new directory and then put the files inside there. Okay, and you just paste the URL. Shift insert for Git Bash users. Shift insert is paste. Okay, and you're going to hit enter. And it says cloning into a folder called normalize.css. And it does a little bit of magic. It resolves deltas. I don't know what that means, but sounds cool. Resolving changes, resolving differences. Okay. And we go in, and if we look, we now have a normalize.css directory. If we go in there, you'll notice I have that cool thing that appeared before. You don't have that, but that's okay. But we can list the contents. We have all of this stuff, okay? Plus we have the .git folder. And we were able, and we downloaded all the different files. And not only that, we have, in addition to just the files, we have the entire history. All these commits, all these branches, all these releases, all the stuff that's shown here, we have it all. We have all the information. If this website was deleted tomorrow, if this repository on this website was deleted tomorrow, we have all the information to recreate it perfectly. Git clone.
Sir.
Yep.
Yeah, there's something wrong with my clone. Like it goes well, like saying cloning into normalize.css, but
Yep.
then it shows up a fatal, like protocol HTTPS is not supported. Something like this.
And this is the typical problem I run into when we get to this part of the course. Okay, we'll deal with that later. I can't deal with that right now, unfortunately. We'll take it offline at the end of the class, okay? We'll talk on Discord. Yeah, we'll talk on Discord after, because I can't help you right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that's git clone. Last but not least, our third command that I'll show you is, and okay, so other than being able to see these Git directories, it'd be kind of nice to know when you're inside a Git repository, right? Like you don't currently have something on your prompt that tells you you're in, and we'll talk about what master means later. Okay, you don't have something on your prompt telling you, hey, you're in a Git repository, okay? So there's a command that will not only tell you that you're in a Git repository, but it will also provide you with information about any changes that have been made. Okay, we haven't looked. And so this is kind of like, this is a command that you're going to run very often. And the command is git space status, enter. Okay. If you run this command inside a repository, then it will work. And it will say something like, on branch master, your branch is up to date with origin master. Nothing to commit, working tree clean. We will learn what all of this information means in due time. Okay, we're going to learn a lot of it tomorrow, actually. But for today, I just want you to be able to understand that we can use this command inside any directory we want, but if we use it in a directory like home that is not being tracked as a repository, git status, we get fatal, not a Git repository. Okay, so this is a really easy way to figure out. It's not fatal, nothing happened, no one died, don't worry. Okay, it's a really easy way to figure out whether or not, other than checking for this Git folder, whether or not we're in a Git repository. Git status.
Sorry, John, I have a question here.
Sure.
I checked the Git status, and I have a line at the at last. It says nothing added to commit, but untracked files present. Is that something I should worry of?
Oh, did you do this in your previous one? In the Git test?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I did it on my all of my code before.
Projects. Yeah. Okay. So if you do this in your Git test, it's going to start saying, "Hey, you've got things that we haven't, aren't in history yet." Right? So what we're doing is we're setting up the backup. If you think about this, we're setting up the backup, but we have not yet backed anything up. And it's kind of just telling you like, hey, you've got some stuff in here that we've never backed up yet. And that's all it's saying. So it's kind of letting you know like, hey, these files that are added, not backed up. It's not saying, do you want to back them up? Press this button to back them up. It's just kind of like the status of, you have these things, they're not backed up. As we start changing things, it's also going to come in and say, okay, so here's stuff that you haven't backed up yet. Here's stuff that are backed up but have changed since the last backup. And here's some other stuff, right? So like we're going to start seeing different sections start to fill out in this Git status. And it's a report. That's all it is. It's a report of things that are occurring. We will still have to manually push the button to back them up or to take snapshots or to do stuff. And when I say push the button, I mean type in a command, right? But we're still going to have to actively say, okay, everything looks good. This is a good spot. Let's take a snapshot now. Get everyone smiling, get the family all there, right? So I'm not surprised. So if you run git status on a directory that is new, not cloned, but brand new, it will say this for every new file that's in there because none of them have been backed up yet.
So are they like being backed up as the like original version, or they just staying there as backed up files?
They're nothing yet. They're nothing yet. They are just the files that you have right now. Like nothing is really happening yet because we haven't done anything yet. Like all we did was we set it up and it's ready to be backed up, but we haven't ran that backup yet. And so nothing's really happened yet. That's all.
Hey, John.
Tomorrow we'll learn how to do that. Yeah.
Just to add to this, so when you actually set up your Git repo, it doesn't back up the file itself until there's been changes made because it's keeping track of the changes, right?
No, not even then. Not even then. Not even then. So even when you make changes, it's not backing it up. What it's waiting for you to do is it's kind of waiting like, it's more like a photograph than it is a video camera, right? You're thinking of a video camera where every single move you make is captured, right? But it's more like, no. We're going to let me set the scene first. Let me get everything in order, make all my changes, put it all together and say, okay, this is a snapshot. Like if I go back over here, it doesn't track every single time I push a key. It tracks large changes. And I don't exactly know how it decides to change them or how exactly to take these snapshots, but it looks like it bunches them together, right? Like multiple sets of changes together. And then what probably happens is it looks at it and I work on it over the course of 2 hours. And then I don't touch it for an hour or two. And it probably says, okay, he hasn't touched it for an hour or two. This is probably means that it's a good time to take a snapshot, right? And so Google Docs does that for you automatically. Git needs us to tell it, okay, now's the right time to take a snapshot. Okay, so it's not actively tracking it all the time, like actually backing it up. It's waiting for us to say, okay, back up now. And then it will take that snapshot to make that commit. And we'll be doing that tomorrow. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool, excellent. All right, so your task for today is going to be fairly straightforward. Your task for today is going to be watch these videos. It's going to cover the same stuff that I cover, but if you didn't quite understand, that guy in the video is actually pretty good at explaining it. And then exercise 4, initially a Git repository. So once you have completed that, so if you haven't already configured it like we did in class, go here to this page and it shows you the configuration. Okay, exercise 0, make sure your shit's configured. Exercise 1, go to your budget calculator, go to your pig game project, and go to your repair list project from the previous classes that we did and initialize them as your Git repositories, all 3 of them. Git init, git init, git init. Don't initialize your home directory, please. Inevitably, someone will. Number 2, go to this Pied Piper Fun GitHub page. We did this one in the first course. It was a web page that we built. Okay, I put it up on GitHub. Clone it. Go clone it. And then delete the entire directory after. You see, now you need to navigate in your stuff. So you need all that bash stuff that we learned. And then this time, go back, but now don't let it clone into its own repository. Figure out how to clone into its own directory. Figure out how to clone it into a directory with the name of your choosing. And there's a way to do this. Git clone has a little flag that says connect it or clone it into this directory. Make sure you're using the proper command that renames the folder as it's cloned. So you might need to research that, but it's in the videos. Delete the entire directory after. So pretty straightforward. Tomorrow, when we get started on a new project and a new exercise, I'm going to expect that you are initializing it. Every single project that we do from now on will be tracked in Git. Absolutely every single one, and will be pushed to GitHub. And it will be part of the assignment specifications. Okay? All right.
Hey, John.
Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question just about general, like the terminal and stuff. And might be helpful for other people. But I've started just like launching and opening all my stuff with the terminal.
Yep.
But every time I do it, I have to go find a path. Can you use alias to give a name to a path?
You can add paths to the path. So like there is a variable, an environment variable called path. See? Yeah. So I just ran it here and it shows you all the things that are in the path. If you really wanted to, you can, you can add an alias, totally. You can also add new folders to this path. What that means is now all of these things, then they're all separated by colons. These are all things that are available here for me. So for example, the reason why I can access VS Code with code is this right here.
So is Chrome in there by default? Because I know I can start Chrome.
No, I don't have Chrome in here. In Git Bash, maybe. Let me see in Git Bash.
How do I find path in Git Bash? Because the path command doesn't work in Git Bash.
$path?
Oh, $. Okay.
$path. And then let's see. Is Chrome in here? Well, this isn't, sorry. C:\Windows. C:\Windows system. See, the other thing is though, some of these might have paths in them too. So like Windows has its own path. C users jnizy bin. I wonder what's in there. Sorry, I'm on a little bit of a side quest. Copy. CD. Shift insert. CD bin. No such folder directory. Yeah, but like, okay, so typically, honestly, Kevin, when I say you should use your thing as much as possible,
yeah,
I don't mean like necessarily navigating around and opening programs on your Windows side through it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you are, that's awesome.
I just figured there's something like that would make me use my terminal more outside.
It will. Yeah,
you know?
it will. You could add aliases, or you can add things to the path. That's what I would do. So adding something to the path, you'll have to look into that. I'll see if I can find you a link. It's not hard. It's not hard. It's just, yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So that's it for today. Tomorrow, we're going to go over a couple more commands. Tomorrow morning, obviously, we have our standard thing, 8:45. Our other class, tomorrow's class is going to be excellent. I'm really looking forward to it, I think. I don't know. I hope so. Yeah, I'm available. I'm in a meeting 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock again, so I'm around. Just message me. I hope my computer crashes again halfway through the meeting. That was a blessing in disguise. Other than that, I will see you tomorrow morning. Ray, I'm going to hook up with you right now. We're going to see if we can figure out that problem, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, excellent. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. See ya.